like, wait a minute. We have all these Houston people and Big 12 people that watch our show. Why don't I just do a top 5 candidates for Houston? Like, I've been thinking about this for 15 minutes, and 14 of it I won't get back. Like, it's like 14 was a waste. Like, what if I would have had a really good idea in that 14 minutes after I just done this, which I knew I was going to do this week anyway? Might as well do it today. Number 5, Jeff Banks from Texas. Seems to be making his way into some buzz about some head coaching. I know, given the whole poll assassin thing, this is pretty exciting or pretty surprising to a lot of people. But he has kind of climbed up the ladder. He's been an influential
climbed up a poll, a coaching poll.
Yeah. I almost said pole monkey, which would have been your fault.
Yeah, that's my deal. Yeah.
but no, Jeff Banks could be the guy. There's some names in here that one of them I kind of is very theoretical, but Jeff Banks I think could be a guy that they look at. Although I do think that this search is going to come down to the last 2 names on the list. Seemingly it seems that way. But Jeff Banks is an interesting coaching candidate to use.
I tell you what, man, their special teams, they're good. Auburn is incredible. What he's doing at kicker. What they had what was it? Robinson ran back a kick for a touchdown. Worthy's done that. They're so explosive. They have so many weapons, but he's done a really good job.
I mean, yeah, he's the associate head coach, so he's in line to be the man sooner rather than later at another program, and been around the states at Texas and Texas A&M now at this point, knows it very well. Been at Alabama, knows the ins and outs of how it works there as well. So yeah, I mean, in terms of a resume. I think that would be one that is very impressive to Houston and the familiarity within the state as well. So, yeah, Jeff Banks, I think, is a guy who could get some consideration.
Yeah. Number 4, and Phil Venzer, I'm sorry, but Barry Odom from UNLV. Look, been in the Power 5. He was at Missouri before. Had a little bit of success there, and then it kind of turned down. What he's done at UNLV has been very, very impressive, and they seem to be a program very much on the up. But Barry Odom, when it comes to getting another Power 5 job, this one seemed to be would be a really good transition for him. And again, he coached in the Big 12 at one twice. He was in the SEC. But yeah, he's in the he was there as a defensive coordinator when they were in the Big 12. So yeah, Barry Odom to me would be a nice choice for Houston if they made it.
Yeah, I mean, did a really nice job in Las Vegas this past season. Really ramped that program back up. Has been in the Big 12 to your point. Outside of that, I don't know if there's any, a bunch of whole logical connections here, anything that ties him to Houston. It would be a step up from UNLV. I think that's fair to say. Phil probably be like, no, it is. So, yeah, I mean, a guy with a lot of coaching experience. I could see that.
Yeah. Number 3, Kliff Kingsbury. He's eventually going to be a head coach again. I think I would not be surprised to see him be an offensive coordinator somewhere again for a little bit, but he's going to be a head coach again. And I wonder what he's learned from his previous stops because the biggest question about Kliff Kingsbury, you bring him in, you're going to score points. But the interview question that's going to be tricky for him is, okay, help me out here because I'm going to have to sell this to everyone. You had the best football player on planet Earth, on every planet, in Patrick Mahomes. He was throwing for 500 yards, 700 yards in games. And I'm not even making the 700 up. We know it happened. It was ridiculous. And they lost that game. So why were you so deficient on defense that you could not win when you had the quarterback to end all quarterbacks? And that would be the question for any head coaching job he would get. So if he can answer that question, if he's learned a little bit in that, then yes, Kliff Kingsbury, I think is a guy who can pretty much run a program pretty smoothly. I think he's got charisma. I think players will want to play for him. All those things. I mean, this is the dude who coached Johnny Football and Patrick Mahomes. He's got some, and Kyler Murray, he's got some juice. But he's got a big cavernous hole that's even worse than Lincoln Riley, his current employer, on defense.
Yeah, Texas Tech was not good when he was their head coach.
Yeah.
And that was his alma mater. They were not good at all, and they had to move on from him, obviously. I mean, he's able to pull in some high-level quarterback talent. I think that's something he could certainly do there. He's got the history at Houston from many years ago. He was pretty high up the ladder there at one point in time. I don't know. I understand why he's being mentioned as a candidate. I totally get as to why. Seen him, talked about quite a bit already. For the various reasons that we've mentioned. I don't know how seriously Houston would consider him, but that's certainly a name that's been floating out there quite a bit.
Number 2, Willie Fritz at Tulane. I'm sorry, at Tulane, just continues to do a great job and is a fantastic coach. My only thing about Willie Fritz is if you're Houston and you want a guy that Willie Fritz is like 63. He might be at a spot. He's living in New Orleans. We've had him on the show like 2 or 3 times. He seems to really love the Tulane job. And I don't think he's just putting that on. Like he really does love that job. That's his program now, and he can kind of retire at Tulane, and that would be great. But he does, warrant us a shot at the Power 5 because of what he's done if he wants it. And Houston and New Orleans aren't that far apart. He wouldn't have to move that far. He recruits that area anyway, and he would recruit it with more clubs in the bag at being in the Big 12. And he's one of the better coaches in the country, hands down. So Houston would be silly not to ask him.
There's something that's very fun, and this is just geography-wise, but Houston and New Orleans are actually really far apart. They're 5 hours away from one another, and that's how big the state of Texas is. But sometimes it does seem like they're kind of right there. I know what you mean. I'm not knocking your phrase. I'm just saying for people that don't realize, though, it's 5 hours away from each other. That's not nothing. And at his age, I think that, I feel like he would take a bigger job to pull him away. Is Houston that much of a step up, or is he just looking for a new challenge? If he is, then sure, that makes all the sense in the world. But as far as like a big competitive advantage and a step up, I suppose that they're making way more money now than Tulane is, but is it worth, picking everything up and moving on along? I don't know. I don't know Willie Fritz at all to know whether or not that would be attractive to him, but Houston could certainly do far worse, and he would be a great hire. I do think the age is somewhat of a concern just because, how long is he in it for? What are his thoughts on the future and how many years he wants to continue coaching, that type of a thing. But a tremendous head coach. Just don't know if Houston's enough of a pull for him to want to make that trip.
And number 1, Jeff Traylor. I thought he was the best. Look, and I love the Mike Elko hire at A&M, but I still thought Jeff Traylor was the best guy for them to hire. But I think Jeff Traylor would be the best guy for a lot of schools to hire. And if somebody isn't hiring this year, somebody's probably going to hire him next year. And we haven't talked about Arkansas a lot because we don't, we're not privy to that much information. But Sam Pittman seems to be under the same kind of thing as Dave Aranda, and that's a job that would go after Jeff Traylor. I do believe if it were to come open next year, if he does not improve. So I just think he would be perfect at it. You put him in Southeast Texas, he's gonna own that era in recruiting. He's gonna do so well, and you give him more of the resources, the stuff that you're pumping into that program. Jeff Traylor at Houston would be a home run. Home run.
Yeah, it's going to be hard for me to imagine that if, in fact, he doesn't get the job at Houston, that he'll have to wait another year. There'll be openings even after the bowl game. We never know. But as far as the fit, Arkansas, he's been there before. Obviously, anything in Texas would make sense. That he might end up waiting another year, which for him only makes him more valuable.
Yeah, I'm just curious what a school like Baylor is thinking. Do they feel like Jeff Traylor is a worthwhile pursuit? And if so, why wait and risk that he's not there next year? That's a very curious piece of this to me is whether they even looked that direction or not. But, this would be a great hire for Houston. Obviously, Houston is not like you typically would maybe have in most metros as, New Orleans is an LSU town, right? There's probably other better examples to give, but here in Texas, the city of Houston is not a Houston town. It's an A&M town. It's a Texas town. It's an LSU town. It's a sprinkling of other things, and it's also a Houston town, down at its core. So I do think he could wreak a lot of havoc. He'd still lose plenty of guys to all the schools that I just mentioned. He wouldn't be able to just run in there and run roughshod on recruits, but he'd be able to do some good damage and bring in a lot of talent. They'd be well coached. Obviously, a tough loss for them this past weekend that we didn't get around to against Willie Fritz in Tulane. But yeah, he's a heck of a coach, and I'm just curious now of kind of what the holdup is at this point. He's got a bunch of experience. He's been at UTSA for quite a while now. He knows the state. He knows the SEC. What's the big holdup here for Jeff Traylor other than just timing? And maybe it's just timing. Maybe that's all it is. But yeah, you'd have to imagine that sooner or later he's going to make a jump. And the way the everything's building up, him and Houston would seem like the most logical conclusion.
I think that his value goes up because